Hey guys, today we're taking a look inside the grading process for my friend Jake Ide's short film, Glenda Goes Quiet. Jake and I worked together remotely on this project, and he's agreed to let me share our first Zoom session together with you guys. In this session, we focused primarily on designing our overall look for the film, which is something you guys have heard me talk about a lot in other videos. But I'm really excited for you to get the chance to see it in a live and collaborative setting today. So during the call, you're going to be seeing the live feed from my reference monitor, and then afterwards we're going to do a quick post game where I'll walk you through the note stack that I built while we were talking. I'm really excited to share this with you guys, and let's get right into it.
Hello?
There he is.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey buddy, I'm faceless because I had to hand over the feed to the output from my display that you're going to see in a minute.
It totally makes sense. No sweat at all.
How's it going, man? It's great to see you.
Good. Yeah, it's good to see, hear you and to see your photo.
Yeah, man. What's new? What's good in Austin today?
Not a whole lot. Just, I don't know. Strange times, huh?
Dude, really strange times.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But, we're hanging in there. Nothing too new or exciting. Just trying to finish this project up.
Nice. So let's get into it, man. So I've got everything pulled in here. You should be able to see the feed now.
Yep.
So let me kind of give you my pitch about the way that I love to tackle films in particular, but really everything.
Yep.
So if we sort of step back in time for a second and we think about the way that a lot of the movies that you referenced in your treatment and like the films that I really love, a lot of those happened before we had digital intermediate.
Yep.
And the way that stuff really went down is it was a question of really well engineered film negatives and film positives being married together. So that was like the biggest influence on the look of the film prior to DI was in the print stock that you choose. And my bar for like great looking films, it's still like Apocalypse Now and like Close Encounters and like all these movies that were timed that way that I don't think look good in spite of that system that I'm talking about. They actually look good because of it. They look good because they had this really unified look that married everything together. That was the first thing they picked out rather than something they tried to make come to life on every single shot. So I like to design a digital print stock and figure out what's the contrast ratio that we like, what's the colorimetry, the saturation, all that stuff that we like. And then we kind of go in and refine individual shots from there. Does that kind of make sense?
That's great. Yeah, no, I totally get it.
Cool. So as a starting point, this is like a straight up, like very traditional print stock. This is, I think, probably a Fuji that I've got going on here.
Yep.
And then the other one that I initially put on here based on your treatment and some of your references is just like a little bit of a contrast reduction. So just a little softer, like in the shadows.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I was trying to play with was kind of bringing some of the mid-tones, kind of the gamma, like darkening those just a little bit, but without crunching up the blacks too much.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So like if we think about that photographically, that could be as simple as like trimming a quarter of a stop.
Yeah.
So like that would be just coming down a quarter of a stop on, basically the same way that a lens would have.
I kind of like that already. I think it gives it the more kind of like darker, realistic kind of tone that like can kind of contrast with all the design elements of the like production design. Does that make sense?
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I love I love going deep. So, I mean, I think that's something we can play with on individual shots, but it might be a fun thing to
overall
build into our stack, just a little kind of quarter stop pull.
Yeah. Later on, there's the meditation scenes that are in there. And I was looking for something that had much kind of a darker feel than the way it's shot without changing the whole lighting. One of the movies that I was looking at there was Arrival.
Yeah.
Which is very dark, and it definitely has that kind of those mid-tones that are brought way down. And I started liking that so much, it's like, oh, this kind of could become, to use your words, more of like a global kind of thing.
You know what? That's a great reference. And in fact, what we're doing right now is exactly what Bradford Young does in The Neg. And that's one of the reasons, like, I feel like that look, he's like the best at that. Like, that's such a hard look to get because it's so easy for it to feel like flat and unfinished,
Yep.
But it never does. It always feels deep. It always feels polished, even though it's got a very low con, like kind of like soft, feathery feeling to it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the difference between your super bright highlights. Like there's a big space between your highlights, like, on her nose, on the left side of her nose there, and some of the levels that are under that.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just play around with, since we're talking about, arrival and how low can you go con-wise, and let's just go too far. Like, let's find a contrast drop that feels too flat. Right now we're about 10% backed off from like a 0 point.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just try like 25.
Yeah.
Which I think that's probably, open to your thought, but I feel like that's probably a bit past where I would want to go.
Yeah, I see that.
So let me pitch something like this to you.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be, so here's 0, and this is now about 15% contrast reduction. I like it here.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I'm liking this contrast curve that we've built. I'm just going around and flipping it on and off. I feel like I'm continuing to like where it's parking things. Here and there we'll make individualized nudges, but that's all feeling pretty tasty. And then let's just look at just the colorimetry portion of the stock. Every print stock is going to have its own unique formula that is specifically concerned with like the most dominant memory colors, which are skin, sky, and foliage, kind of roughly in that order. So I'll flip it on and off with this one, and then we can audition some other ones.
Yeah, I could already see like the Fuji kind of stock as you like scrolled past that tomato, like the reds on it.
Yeah, they get like deeper.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's just audition some different options there. So this would be like some Fuji colorimetry. You might really like that one. These are all variations on a theme, but that's where we were a moment ago.
Yep.
This would be that adjustment.
Actually, I think I like the Fuji better.
Yeah, I as I said that, I was thinking like, yeah, maybe that may be the more restrained palette of the two. If you're digging that as an initial starting point, like I really like what this is doing to skin and like tomato, as you said.
The one other thing, if you don't mind spending another minute in this global kind of area.
Absolutely.
The upper end of things, the brightness, it feels maybe a little too bright still. I don't know if there's a way just to bring down, I don't know if it's the highlights or like somewhere, just below the highlights in that kind of area. Yeah,
that's a really fun idea. So I think as a starting point, I'm going to play with our contrast layer that we dialed in a minute ago. And I'm basically, like, as I said, we're dialing out around 15%. So I want to play with where it's borrowing that reduction from. Like right now, it's taking it kind of like in equal measure from the bottom and from the top. But I can like redistribute that so that we're taking a little more from the top.
Yeah.
Which would be something more like that.
Yeah, I like that a lot already.
Yeah, I dig that, man. Oh yeah, that's a win.
Oh yeah, even the exteriors.
Yeah,
it's nice.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
this is tracking for me if you're digging it.
Well, I am. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. What? Anything else kind of at this global scale you want to toy around with? It, like, by the way, we can always flip back over to this. It's not like we're closing a door on anything.
Yeah. No, I think that was the main other thing that I was kind of thinking. Yeah, let's move on.
Cool. So now that you've had the chance to sit in on our initial look setting session, let's take a look behind the scenes at the Davinci Resolve project and the pieces that went into the look you watched us build out. So I'm going to work my way from right to left and briefly touch on each of the ingredients in my node stack here. So first up, I've got my output mapping, which is just taking me from my ACES working space into my Rec 709 display space. This is strictly a technical transform that is giving me appropriate contrast and saturation for my monitor. Nothing too exciting there, something that you're going to see in any project I tackle. Over to the left, another ingredient that's always going to be in my global look layer, which is my colloid print plugin. When I kick this on, you're going to see this is where I'm getting kind of my signature baseline of contrast and colorimetry. And I've dialed in a particular print curve and cube that I and Jake liked, and backed off the intensity of my split toning, which is the push of cool into the shadows and warm into the highlights, down to about 65%, as well as of my cube, which is kind of my preferential color palette, down to about 65% as well. So just pulled those things back from their default value of 100. Moving over to the left, I've made a custom curves adjustment into the toe because, as you heard us talk about on the call, one of our ongoing goals for this grade was to really soften the contrast and open things up a little bit. So I spent a lot of time in this grade kind of chipping away at that agenda and trying to find ways to go just a little further with softening the contrast without flattening things out and losing contour and definition in the images. So this ended up being one of the ingredients that helped me with that. It's quite subtle, as you can see, because I've set a pretty healthy movement here in the graph, but then I've backed it way off here on the sliders. Where that really starts to marry up and do something is when I kick on my contrast adjustment that I have going on in the next node, which is looking like this. So this is my Contrast Plus colloid plugin. We're pulling out about 0.13 of contrast, and I've set my pivot at that sweet spot where you heard me adjust it toward the end of our time together on our call. So those two in tandem are doing a lot of our kind of signature contrast definition for the overall look. And if I go to my very last link in the chain here, this is another one of my colloid plugins called Exposure. It's exactly what it sounds like. And as you can see on my slider here, all I'm doing is evenly pulling about a quarter stop of exposure from the image. And this is happening across the board in all scenes. So between these three ingredients, this is where I'm really softening things out and controlling contrast at the global level. And of course, this is something I was mindful of as I was getting into individual shots as well, but this gave me a great baseline for all of the images to start with that was in the ballpark of that kind of softer, feathery contrast that we talked about on our call. I hope you guys enjoyed this first-hand look at our grading process for Glenda Goes Quiet. I want to thank Jake for a great collaboration on this project and for allowing me to share it with you guys today. As always, if you have any questions, you can leave those down below, and we'll see you for the next video.